Heritage Auction's February 2015 Vintage Guitars and Musical Instruments Signature Auction is offering many famous guitars from rock legends to one-of-a-kind gems. The Gibson Nick Lucas Special was originally conceived as a collaboration between music sensation Nick Lucas and Gibson sales manager Frank Campbell back in 1924. But by 1929, Gibson had decided to redesign their entire flat-top guitar line, including the Nick Lucas Special. Considered to be the finest incarnation of the guitar, the 1929 remodeled example is one of the most desirable acoustic guitars of the early 20th century. Exceptionally ornate for the period, the Martin 000-42 has long been a favorite of collectors and some of the finest players ever, most notably Eric Clapton. Some figures estimate that Martin made fewer than 120 of these guitars in just over a decade of production. With a shorter scale, the model became famous for a warm tone and elegantly charming looks. The brainchild of legendary luthier Lloyd Loar, the L5 was introduced in 1922 and has remained in production ever since. A favorite of jazz and big band musicians, the L5 has seen several variations created by Gibson, but few have become more iconic than the L5 Premier. 1939 was the first year for the single cutaway Premier and the highly desirable blonde finish, which still dazzles today. Often considered the first lady of rock and roll, singer-guitarist Mary Kay was featured in a Fender endorsement photo holding a maple neck gold hardware blonde Strat back in 1956. The color combination became an instant hit. Though never technically called the Mary Kay Stratocaster by Fender, the artist and the guitar became forever linked, and the guitar's limited production numbers made it incredibly desirable to collectors. In late 1958, the Mary Kay Strat received a rosewood neck for a very short run before production ended in 1959. Having played with Pink Floyd, Roger Waters, and Thin Lizzy, Snowy White has become one of the most respected and storied guitarists in history. For a majority of his career, he has played only one guitar, this 1957 Gibson Les Paul Gold Top. Snowy traded a 1950 Stratocaster for the Les Paul while on tour in Amsterdam in 1969. Since then, he has played the guitar and filled arenas all over the world, a true piece of rock and roll history. Considered one of the greatest guitarists of our time, Joe Bonamassa has thrilled audiences the world over and played numerous guitars. But this is the one that started his lifelong love affair with vintage guitars. Purchased with money from a savings bond left to him by his grandmother, this was Joe's first vintage axe. Reunited with this 1954 hardtail Strat, he played it on stage in 2014 and recounted the story of his reunion to a packed house at St. Louis's Fox Theater. A letter from Joe and a set list from that performance accompany this amazing piece. Roy Clark is widely praised as one of the driving forces behind the popularity of country music in the 1960s through the 1980s. Co-host of television sensation Hee Haw for over 2 decades and winner of numerous CMA and Grammy Awards, Roy is also hailed as one of the finest guitar pickers ever. This 1963 Jaguar was Roy's personal guitar and featured on the cover of his first full-length album, The Lightning Fingers of Roy Clark. A copy of the album and a letter from Roy authenticating the guitar's story are included. No one knew more about vintage Fender amplifiers than legendary collector and dealer Kurt Linhoff. A number of Kurt's amps have been made available as part of this auction, but none are more awe-inspiring than this remarkable Tweed Bassman. Originally intended as a bass amp in 1952, the Bassman quickly found favor with guitarists as well. It's also the amp that inspired Jim Marshall to create Marshall amplifiers. It's almost unheard of to find Fender amps of this era in such clean, original condition, and this may be one of the finest examples ever offered. Bidding is now open and closing with a live auction in Beverly Hills on February 28th. For more information and to see the full catalog of all vintage guitars and musical instruments, log on to ha.com/7131. Thank you and good luck.